Stephen Kelly, absolutely honoured to have you here on the Modern Warrior podcast.
Thank you very much. This is a privilege to be here.
Yeah, and what a fucking warrior you are, because a lot of us know you from your Instagram handle,
Yes.
$3 left.
$3 left.
And this very comedic character, funny, witty, also with a sense of depth and real authenticity there as well, that I feel.
Yeah,
and that comes through in some of your poems and some of your in some of your content. We know you as that individual, and we don't know you so well as Stephen Kelly. We know you as $3 left, and I want to get to know the Stephen Kelly today.
Brilliant.
And I want to sort of bring this all back to before $3 left, before Hardy Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
To a time when you were working in construction, going quite well. You at one point had 4 houses.
I did.
And, quite well off, doing quite well for yourself, and climbing up this proverbial ladder, so to speak, only to get knocked off it. As
many of us were at the time in Ireland.
During the bust.
Yeah.
And what was that like for you in terms of having sort of got to a certain peak and then a bit of a crash landing afterwards?
It was definitely a big crash landing, because everything was invested in, not just money-wise, but time-wise, future, your hopes and dreams. I had kids, and this was what I was going to do to provide for the kids. And at the time, I had houses. And the reason that there was so many houses, 4 houses, was that's just the way construction was at the time. You couldn't take money out. The only way to reinvest was in construction again. And that's the way the system was set up. So it was set up to fail. If anything went wrong, it all went wrong. And there was the big lads in suits that were at the top. They owed so much money, it didn't matter. They got away with it. The people that weren't working a day in their lives in the dole, that were standing outside the pub of every day at 1 o'clock having their cigarette and their few pints, they weren't affected. They were still getting the same. Nothing changed for them. But it was the working man that really, really suffered at the time. And you owed enough money, so much money that it wasn't possible that you could pay it back. And the pressure to pay it back was unbelievable. But yet you weren't making enough to service it all. All you were doing really and truly was paying off interest, and you borrowed money. Everyone borrowed money at the time to keep it all going, to keep it rolling.
And then the hole gets deeper. You find yourself deeper in the pit.
Deeper and deeper and deeper, and to the point where there's no out. And the pressure that was on myself and anyone that was like that was just immense. It was absolutely immense, and more fool myself and the people that actually tried paying it back. But at the time, it's the type of people that I was, or that people are. They try, and especially Irish people. No one likes to owe money. Irish people don't like owing money, and it's like a failure to say that.
Yeah, sense of shame around it.
Sense of shame, yeah. But it gets to the point where there's nothing more you can do, and you try every avenue to try and scrape things back. And I think that's what led to the stress of my first health scare at 27, 28 years of age. I had a heart just stopped, failed, and it was all down to the stress of trying to pay bills, trying to keep everything going. And it was just a very stressful time, and blood pressure went straight through the roof. And that was what led to my first health scare. But I was in construction. I had done quite well in school. I was very bright. The problem was you're heading into 1998, 1999 after the junior cert. Money was just, especially in construction, and my father was a big in construction. He was the boss. He had a lot of men working for him throughout. From then to probably 2007, he ended up with nearly 50 people working for him at any one time, and it was just crazy. Mm-hmm. I remember, and that was another thing. A lot of people that were born in the early 80s and up to the late 80s, we were born into scraping by, and we weren't. My parents weren't used to money, And then from 96, 97 on, suddenly there was an abundance of cash. There was money, and they just didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And
I'm right there with you. I'm 84, so yeah.
So we just didn't know how to handle. Irish people didn't know how to handle this money, and we lost our shit. And we wanted to keep it going. So the only way to keep it going was keep borrowing, and they just kept handing it out. The banks just kept handing it out because they knew that everything is stacked in their favor. Simple as that. And credit card loans, there was everything just to try and keep up with the Joneses. And very few of us made it out lucky without getting, somewhat brought down by it. And it's a lot of mental health, a lot of stress on families, a lot of breakups through them times was incredible. There was a lot to be said for the Monday to Friday job in factory or whatever like that. But in saying that, I wanted to progress. I didn't want to be in a factory. So you have that mentality that you want to better yourself and better yourself and better yourself. And this kept feeding into it. And you didn't want to be the failure. So eventually it just got to a point where it couldn't be sustained anymore.
What did your life look like after the crash versus the boom? In terms of, I know you're flying quite high during the boom years, and then again you're on the floor during the crash. But how did that have an impact on your life outside of construction in terms of relationships, in terms of your behavior?
Everything. The relationship that I was in at the time as well. A mother of one of my kids. She had a fairly good job. So you went from being the provider of the house, and I had kids in a different relationship as well. You went from being the provider to being provided for, and it's not a good feeling, especially when you're a man, and that's just the way it is. And let no man tell you that it's any otherwise. We want to be seen to be providing, and I know this is I'm all for equality and all that, but at the end of the day, it's a primal thing. Men want to be able to look after their kids or their partners or whatever, like that, and so it was a real blow to the ego. Yeah, massive.
Your mental health suffered.
Oh, definitely. You like borderline depression. If you went out drinking, and I want to talk about like the relationship with drink later on, but if you went out drinking, then for the next few days after drinking sessions, was very bad. You'd start thinking, what am I doing? You'd be even contemplating, does your family even care about you? That sort of thing. But that's drink for you. That is the depression of drink, the drink blues. So it was a cycle. It was just a vicious circle that you couldn't get out of, and you kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And I was probably lucky that eventually I pulled myself together. You have to pull yourself together, or you're gonna drown. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, I got a job in Aldi, and that was the best thing. That was the best thing that happened to me. The discipline that Aldi showed at the time was just incredible. And for any young person, maybe looking for a job, you don't know whether to go to college or not. Try out a few months in Aldi. Apparently, I was there for 5 years. Apparently, it's a lot easier place to work for now, but the discipline it showed me with time wise, even though I was late here today, time wise, being punctual, looking after yourself, it really was a great structure. And I'm sure Lidl and them sort of German places are quite the same. I'm not advertising any of them.
Yeah. Those Germans are ruthless.
Yeah, they are. Efficient. Efficiency was just incredible. But they looked after you. They rewarded you well.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the key. Every man has to know his worth.
Yeah.
And be paid his dues as well. So.
But the real crash came for you though at 27, 28 when you had that heart issue.
Yeah. That was it. But it also was a great thing for me because it put everything into perspective. At that stage, it was either, live with what had happened and try and fix it. Another thing is I tried to bury my head in the sand when it came to financial problems, and I kept trying to fight fires. But you cannot. So you have to come to the realization that something has to be done. You have to sit down in front of all these people and try and sort it out. You really do. It won't go away. It won't go away. So the best thing you can do is sort it out, man to man or woman or woman to whatever. Sort it out, sit down, make the call. You have to, because that's the only way it's going to get sorted. And it will get sorted. At the end of the day, the person at the end of the line wants to fix it as well. The system will try and bring you down, but if you talk to the person that or the institution in general, they'll try and sort something out with you. Or there's MABs as well, that sort of thing. So
this was during a time though you were 28 and you were working in Aldi, so you're beginning to be able to pay off some of those debts, were you?
So then it was actually around the same time. The more I think of it, it was the heart scare and getting the job in Aldi coincided with each other. And I got the job a couple of months after the heart scare. And actually I wanted it to work so much in Aldi that I had an operation. I had to go back for an operation to sever the connection between my kidneys and my heart. That was part of the fixing of the problem. And I was about 2 weeks working in Aldi at the time. And I went up and I had heart surgery in Galway. And I went back 2 days later and kept working in Aldi. And I never said a word because you're in a 3 months probation period. And I didn't want them to think that there was something wrong with me. So I remember having the heart scare, getting out the next day, or get the heart operation or procedure, and going back into work on the second day just to get it done. But you do what you need to do when you're in these positions.
Yeah, that stubbornness can serve you quite well sometimes, but it can also
that's true.
create a lot of problems.
Could have backfired as well, but thankfully, I mean, when it comes to these things, I do take chances with that, but it paid off in the end.
So, okay, you had the heart scare, 27, 28.
Yeah.
Did you realize at that stage that was the result of all the stress that you had been under over the last decade or more?
1,000%. I knew it was the stress. It was complete stress because your mind and your body are linked.
Yeah.
What your mind goes through your body, it'll show in your body. Simple as that. And vice versa. You have to feed both of them. Even now, since Christmas, I got like a dose I couldn't get rid of, just no energy, whatnot. And I know for a fact that physically I've just, put on a bit of weight, and mentally I'm just not feeling well. And that's because of, but I'm starting to get back into it now again, and getting back into the run. And running was a lifesaver for me. And it was actually the heart scare when I was 27, 28 and recovering from that I got into the running. And I do think that the running and the effect it had on me mentally went side by side as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, both played into each other.
Because the stresses don't go away, do they? And the pressure doesn't go away.
No, but it's how to handle them. It's to have your mechanisms to deal with stress. That's what you need to build up. And that's what I probably didn't work on because we were so busy at work. There was never a time that I needed to work on that. It was just busy physically, get jobs done, working for my father in the process of taking over in the company, and then it just like literally be pulled, the rug be pulled. Okay. And my father, all credit to him, he had, I think it was 48 men on the books when the crash happened. He tried to drag it on. He actually ended up borrowing money because that was the character that he was. No one ever missed a payment. Everyone got paid on Friday. He'd borrow money just to keep it all going, thinking that it had come back. And that's just the character he was as well, because when the bust happened, it really affected him and he never really recovered from that. He ended up being diagnosed bipolar, heart of an angel, just couldn't handle the stress of it. Big Josker of a man. I had to talk about him in my live shows. 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 28 stone, just a massive mountain of a man. And always busy all his life, but this was a major hammer blow. He was like a kitten. You could talk to him like a kitten at times. And then frustration built up as well. And that was tough to watch, to watch a big man like that, a fine man, my father, to come down like that. And he never really recovered from it, but he's in good spirits now. He's at home.
And you had to carry a lot of that stress and a lot of the pain that he had endured as well.
Yeah, because again, it was, not only was it my hopes and dreams, it was his as well, as a grandfather and a father.
Yeah.
So,
because the hope at the time was that you would take over the business.
Yeah, it was like I was in the process of like trying to figure out a way how to, transcend the business into my, so.
Okay. So so not to minimize the extent of having a heart attack here and going through a heart procedure and, an incredibly traumatic experience to the body and to the mind. 2 days later, you're back in Aldi.
Yeah. Well, this is, from the heart scare itself, I'd say this is about 4 or 5 months after I was in ICU for 9 days.
Yes.
This is just a procedure that they said that this would help because my blood pressure was still super hypertensive. It was when I went in initially, it was 240 over 160, which is double top, double bottom. They couldn't understand how I hadn't had a stroke. I was put in an isolated unit because they thought I actually had TB, which
very rare.
Very rare. And these were the symptoms of TB. Apparently, and anyone that had come and visit me, they had to go in a hazmat suit and the whole works coming in. So it was scary. It was scary for my mother as well at the time. I remember her in ICU. I remember looking out through the isolation glass and seeing her and talking to the doctor. And next thing, she just burst into tears. And I knew then that there was something wrong. Because when you're in these situations, because I was in an even worse situation a few years later, and we'll talk about that. When you're in these situations, you don't really know what's going on. You're putting your trust in the staff and the doctors and the nurses and everything like that.
They're not telling you what's going on. They're trying to protect you from the information.
They kind of are, yeah. A little bit because they don't
keep your spirits up, or
or I'd say not to affect my blood pressure either, because at this stage I'm teetering.
Okay.
So, but when I looked out and I seen my mother just burst into tears, I knew that there was something wrong, and no one wants to be in that position,
So you knew something.
Yeah, I knew something was up then, and so leading on then to 4 or 5 months later, I had the procedure then to sever the nerves between my kidney and my heart, and since then it has been pretty much regulated. I'm on half the tablets I was at the time, and it's all good.
So going back to the heart attack and the life you had before the heart attack versus the life you had afterwards, what changed?
Everything, perspective changed, the whole works. I got physically, I got into fitness, and that probably saved me mentally as well.
For the first time ever?
Oh, for the first time ever. I couldn't literally run the length of myself up till that point, and I just started at 500 meters. I'd run, then up to 1 kilometer, then up to 3K, then up to 5K, and then I ended up doing ultramarathons. So,
you did a charity event there, didn't you?
We done many charity events, and I always said if I had a platform, I would pump back into charities.
So the run was one thing.
The run was one thing. Myself and French Toast, or Peter Cassidy, ran from Dublin to Mayo. That was in 2019. We ran the coast to Mayo, which was much longer, actually, believe it or not. That was 350k. That was in 5 days. Then we ran 5 marathons in 5 days only a few months ago. That was for the Cancer Fund for Children. But the first one was for Beaumont Hospital, who saved my life. No doubt about it. My last rites were read to me when I had the aneurysm in 3 years later. So we'll talk about that as well. Skipped on there a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
the
I always
listeners
said,
are going, what was that?
Yeah.
Aneurysm. Maybe I should bring it up now. And satisfy their curiosity. So you go through this process. Obviously, you had the heart attack that was linked to the stress and the accumulation of the pressure you're under for many, many years. Yeah. And you overcame that, and you're back. You're back in the world, and you've made some changes. But then, 3 years later,
three and a half years later, I ended up with a bleed on the brain one night. But the 3.5 previous years to that, I had really changed my life around. I was, we'll say, a big drinker at the weekend up to this point. No matter how bad things were, I still wouldn't miss a weekend. And I think that's an Irish thing as well.
You're talking full weekend? Friday,
Saturday,
Sunday
and Sunday.
As well?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Quite often leading into Monday. But that's just, I think that's a defense mechanism that we go through for them two days of the week.
Yeah.
Or 2.5 days or 3 days.
Escapism.
It's escapism.
It's also it's a massive part of the construction industry.
Construction and Irish culture as well. It is.
Like Friday evening, you finish your work, and the expectation is to go to the pub, and then follow on into Saturday and all the rest of it. I've been caught up in that too. So but you parked that, or you minimized it, or
I did for about 3 years. I did 3.5 years. I started working in Aldi. Absolutely loved it. Got into a different relationship. That was a great thing as well. Really changed my life around. Was really happy with myself. The kids were doing well. I was doing well in at work, and I was enjoyed it. Built up a new friendship, sort of social scene as well, and as well as keeping my original social scene going without the mad drinking and that sort of thing. But I suppose it had started to creep in a little bit again. Sort of got complacent. I'd forgot that that I had came from this place of nearly dying in when I was 28. But in saying that, I was still very happy with myself. I was going, I was working hard. I was trying to progress in Aldi as well. I was trying to get up the ladder in Aldi, which was great benefits to it.
Where were we at in Aldi? Like, what was the job role?
Just a normal, store assistant, but on my way to trying to get to a deputy manager and whatnot.
That's it's a fair step down from potentially running your own construction business.
Yes, that is true. But
that is an impact.
Like I said, I really, really enjoyed it.
Okay.
It was the structure of it. It was the knowing that you were starting at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Less pressure, less stress.
You were finishing at 4 or whatever time it was. And at the time, Aldi was a lot. It was very busy, physically and mentally. You worked. The great thing about Aldi is you're on the same level as the managers, and that the managers could be doing the same thing that you could be doing, except for they have to go back into the office and that sort of thing, and they're on a lot more money. But so I liked the fact that everyone was pulling together, and if you pull together, the shop gets rewarded, and doing so you get rewarded. That's just the structure that it is. But I did enjoy it. But it was, you'd think that it would be an ego kick, but it wasn't actually. Because I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the people that I worked with as
a sense of relief as well.
Yeah. And I was getting a regular payment, because another thing in construction is there's loads of work. Even in the bust, there was loads of work. You could be plastering all day long. You could be plastering 24/7. There was no money.
Yeah.
So we worked for 3 months, 3 solid months from January to March, the coldest weather of the year, outside in the freezing cold. I remember it was a particularly cold winter and spring. Your hands would be frozen off you, and then the place went bust, left off to England, left with not a single penny. That happened 2 or 3 different places, and that was when I was like, that's it,
soul destroying.
I'm out of construction. So that was a lot of stress, and then you're gone, and not only that, some of these places that you actually pump money into, you supplied material, and that's like, you'll never get that back.
So going to Aldi was again,
it was great.
The security that brought.
Security.
I'm going to get my money at the end of the day, no matter what. I just need to show up here, put the work in, and there's also a progressive process here. I could work my way up to duty manager and managerial position.
100%.
That was 3 years of your life.
That was three years of my life, and I had maybe 3.5 years. I started going out with someone in Aldi as well, and that's actually frowned upon in the company.
No better man.
Yeah, and that's why I had to move a different shop, so it was a little bit further away.
They kicked you out.
She was a little bit higher in the company that I was, so I had to go to a different shop, and that led its own stress, because it was an hour drive, an hour back, and working hard. Still trying to progress, getting into the fitness, and then I went out, or didn't actually go out one night. I actually stayed in one Saturday night, and 2 lads came back with me. We were watching a movie, and I just felt unnaturally tired. But at that particular day, I had ran a 10K, or the day before, I'd ran my first 10K race. And I was thrilled with myself. It was probably the fittest I ever was at that time. And then I ended up getting an aneurysm that night, and that changed things up again. Unbelievable. So that brought me to another level altogether.
Was that linked to the previous issue with the heart?
They don't know. They said it probably wasn't. And now I had fractured my skull as well when I was 19. Now they said that could have had something to do with it. There was a weakness there in the brain.
That's the time you cracked your head open on a drunken night out, was it?
Yeah, okay. That was a drunken night out. I ended up going to that night. I ended up going to Manchester. I spent 3 nights in Manchester and Liverpool, and I don't remember a single thing of it. I was like I was punch drunk for the entire 3 days without drinking. So they knew there was something wrong. And when I came back, I discovered that I'd fractured my skull and I was bleeding in the brain, like properly massive bleed in the brain. So that might have had something to do with it, but it was never proven.
Okay.
So
was that healed? Was that?
Yeah, well, I thought it was healed.
Yeah.
But I remember I signed myself out at the hospital that time, which I probably shouldn't have. But
that's the stubbornness now.
Yeah,
coming back to bite in the ass, isn't it?
That was the time as well. Construction, busy, mad working during the week.
Yeah.
And mad partying then at the weekends. So you just got on with it. I just had this attitude: get on with it. You should chance everything.
So then you collapse at what age were you then?
31, 32.
You collapse that night, and you're in the house with two other
lads. One of them, lucky enough, would have it. He had just after doing a
paramedics.
Paramedics course. Yeah, that's right. And he knew there was something wrong. The other lad would have just left me there. He would have just thought, or just leave me his grand. But they rang the ambulance. They realised there was something wrong. Rang the ambulance, and the rest.
Well, you'd collapsed on the floor, haven't you?
Yeah. I was coming down the stairs, and I'd say the last 2 or 3 steps. Just
you remember nothing then.
Remember nothing then until I woke up in Beaumont Hospital. But that was a Saturday night. Come Sunday morning, it was about 10 to 2 Saturday night. Or Sunday morning, and I didn't wake up again until Monday evening in Beaumont Hospital. And even at that, I shouldn't have probably woke up that early. Mm-hmm. They put me back into an induced coma, but I do remember waking up. I remember everyone being in the room. And again, this mental attitude that, I was so busy trying to keep everyone else happy as well and get everything done. When I woke up, there was tubes. I couldn't speak. There was so many tubes in my mouth. But I remember thinking, that Sunday I was meant to bring my eldest daughter to serve at Mass, and that was the only thing that was.
She was an altar girl.
Yeah, an altar girl in Cloonloin church, and when I got the pad and paper, first of all I was like, "What's going on?" I thought I was still, for some reason, I still thought I was in my bed in Claremorris, and I could see everyone sat around me, and I was like, what's going on? But I was trying to talk, but obviously couldn't. So they gave me a biro and a notepad, and I wrote down, that was the first thing I wrote, "Did Saoirse get to Mass?" And that was what was going on in my head.
While you're fucking dying there, you're still thinking of someone else,
And then the next thing I was looking for Lucozade because I was mad thirsty. But obviously you couldn't be drinking Lucozade with tubes. Which is, for anyone that's ever been in that sort of position, the thirst is just incredible. And they feed you like dry ice.
Oh, okay. So to just dab it on your tongue or something, is it?
Yeah. But I mean, that's not good. That's not good enough. Like, I would have drank the ocean. And eventually they gave in to me after a lot of persistence. Someone went out. When I did eventually wake up and I still had tubes, they took the tubes out. And the doctor said, "Now sip at this." So it was a waste of time. Got it down me as quick as I could. And it was no sooner down than it was back up again. And I remember him looking at me. He said, "I did tell you."
You weren't ready for it yet, yeah. So you woke up on the Monday morning, and obviously that was too soon because
Monday.
So
Monday
they
evening,
induced into Monday.
Put me back in again. They actually had told my family that I might wake up for 6 weeks. And the fact that they couldn't understand how I'd woken up so quickly. But I do think
you mightn't wake up at all.
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know many people who've survived an aneurysm.
Yeah. That is true. It could be up to 6 weeks if I ever wake up the same again. But I woke up, and I do actually think that some people have this drive, and I believe that I was gifted with that, a drive to keep going, keep pushing. You're here for a reason. Keep pushing. You cannot give up now. And that mental thing was still always in my head. I do remember that all the time, even though I was tubed up, the whole works.
Even
just keep driving.
During the coma, were things coming to you? Or
yeah, I've talked about this a little bit, but not, I'd say, enough. I remember getting, when I did come through, or when I was coming out of the coma, like I remember thinking things and getting messages in my head. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy
to some people.
And I'm not the most religious of men. I'm not the most religious of men, but yet I wouldn't throw away a mass card. But I do remember thinking that I could feel a presence and like people's prayers. Like maybe that's because I knew that people would be praying for me, especially the likes of my grandmother, who was very religious and that sort of thing. But I could actually feel a presence, sort of helping me to come around and to get better. And I remember getting messages for people that I probably shouldn't have been getting messages for, people that wouldn't be that close to me, but people that they were close to were close to me. And I remember there was a particular message for a lady, I'm not going to mention any names, but when I told the message to the lady, and I remember in the message that I got when I was in a coma or coming around, was this lady this will make no sense to anyone else, bar this lady. So when that lady was told, she nearly dropped, where when she got the message, she was like, oh my God, she said, that's insane. No one else knows that.
Something to do with her or something to do with...
No, something to do with her from her past, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Did you know this woman, or you know her through someone else?
I knew her through someone else. I knew her, but I wouldn't be...
Yeah, not to that level.
To that level of... that I should know this much about her.
That's mental.
Yeah. And then there was another couple of quips as well. Now, it was 2016, so it was Easter weekend, and it was the 100-year anniversary of the 1916 Rising.
Yeah.
So in my head, someone was trying to tell me who actually shot the bullet that killed Michael Collins. Which is a crazy thing. And they kept telling me, trying to point me in the direction. And I kept remembering 45 Sandymount Lane or Sandymount Road. That address kept going around in my head. And I think we looked it up, and there is an address, and I'm pretty sure it's either Dublin or Cork or one of them like that. And it just kept saying that address.
You didn't go to visit them?
I often meant to look into it properly, but my life's been so hectic since I never got a chance.
Wow.
Yeah.
So again, you wake up from this coma.
Yeah.
What's changed now?
The main thing is to try and recover, and then again assess what's going on with my head.
So when you wake up from the coma, is there still an incredible risk of you dying?
Of course. Yeah. There was still like a massive won't he make it, but I didn't realize any of this.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't realize any of this, what was going on. As I said, only thing I was worried about at the time was just seriously get to Mass, and I want to drink a Lucozade. Simple as that.
Okay.
And they wouldn't let me go to the normal toilet because there was mirrors in it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I didn't realize this, but my head was like had twice the size and a big like metal stitching all the way around. I did not realize
your head was swollen up.
Yeah. Oh, right. So when I was able to actually walk or even walk with a crutch or whatever, it was a particular toilet with no mirrors in it. Right. They didn't want me going to the thing.
Did you ask questions about that?
I was certain that I didn't deck it, and then eventually I decked it. I could figure out what they were doing.
Did you like identify that there was something different about you from the people who were looking at you, or the people that are you're surrounded by?
Not really. But when I finally came through a little bit more, I realized that when people that hadn't seen me walked in, there was like a bit of a pullback, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And then I seen what it was like. The one side of my head was just massive, like the Elephant Man.
Wow.
And then the metal stitches. And the funny thing is, I only took one picture, or only have one picture of it. And I know it's there somewhere, but I haven't seen it in a long, long time.
Are you afraid to look at it?
No, not really. I could do with it because I know that a lot of newspapers wanted to use it when they got the story. I just couldn't find it. I think one of them took it.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know why I didn't take pictures of it. I just thought it was something that I'm going to get over and forget about.
Yeah.
That was my attitude. So.
And then obviously that attitude has stuck to you because you're still here, and just get up and go. And
get up and go.
Stubbornness or the drive, you call it.
Don't stop.
So to go from that hospital bed to back out in the world and doing what you're doing today, what did that entail?
That entailed, I remember I was told I wouldn't work for 18 months after that. But I was back in work again in 3 months. Again, you couldn't relax around the house. You just want to be pushing, trying to better yourself. And that's just a mental attitude that some people have. Now, and I know some people would gladly take the 18 months and maybe another 18 months to go with it, but that wasn't my attitude. And that's not saying that I'm a good man yourself.
Were you in a relationship at that time?
Yeah, I was in the same relationship I was in with Aldi. Went back working in Aldi, worked in a different one at Aldi that was close. That relationship unfortunately broke down, and then that was a tough time. That was a tough breakup because again, I was happy with my life at that stage. I had really settled into the Aldi life, we'll say, and that was a tough one.
Settled life, isn't it?
Yeah, settled. Everything was going well. So that was a tough one to get over. But again, I have kids. I have to keep pushing forward. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So I pulled myself out of that. And every heartache and every hardship in life, if you're not winning, you're learning. So I learned from that. I built up a lot of mental strength from that. Now I'd like to think that I had mental strength anyway, but I really fortified my mental strength after that. Maybe some people might say even too much, especially relationships, since it took me a long time to break down, and to break down walls, and I had a guard up and that, yeah.
So how did you manage to move beyond that relationship? What were the strategies and tools you used then?
Just again, I used.
Did you go back to the drink?
I didn't.
Did you find a crutch?
I didn't go back to the drink at all, because I knew going back into the drink would lead down to worse. It wasn't going to make it any better. You will not find the answers to. And I love the drink. I love the crack. But my advice to anyone is, if you're in bad form, or something's not right in your life, the drink is the worst thing you can do. 100%. It is not going to make things any better for you.
Only amplifies your problems.
Amplifies it and makes you not think straight. You cannot think straight. I probably got back into fitness, and I used the hurt, not just coming out of that relationship. I used the hurt that I felt at the time to probably pump into getting even fitter again, to recover and make myself better.
Okay. Was it not to go into too much detail in terms of the relationship, but was a lot of it down to you in terms of why it broke down?
No,
or was
for once in my life it wasn't.
Okay. But others were.
Yeah.
And you had to take responsibility.
Yeah, and I took responsibility. And another thing is, I'd like to think that I take responsibility for any mistakes that I've made. You hold your hand up. I'm not one to shy away from. I know I've fucked up in the past, 100%. But again, it's how you deal with it. I most certainly messed up a lot of things in my life. I've also done some good things in my life, and to be able to put your hand up and say I was wrong, and to be able to put yourself up and say, or put your hand up and say that I done well there, equal balance. Both of them are just as a great tool to have. But this particular one, it was actually no one's fault. It was an exterior reason for it, but it was still a tough one to take.
Because you're not just separating from mum, you're separating from your kids as well.
Yeah. No, well, I'd no relation. I'd no
kids with her.
Kids with this particular in this particular relationship, but she had grown very fond of the kids as well.
Yeah. So
that was a tough one to try and, it wasn't just a relationship breakup, it was a complete lie. I completely changed my life at the time. And then, so I just bettered myself. And then...
You're still in Aldi now as well?
No. I left Aldi then. When I left the relationship, that was another thing. When I left the relationship, because it was a big connection with Aldi, I left Aldi as well.
Where'd you go?
I couldn't have it. I went back plastering for a little bit. Working up in Dublin for about a year.
What's the year now we're in?
What year
2017,
is this?
18?
This is 18-19, yeah. Yeah, this is 2018-19. Things are
not that long ago.
Not that long ago. Things were starting to build back up again. I wasn't working for myself at this stage, and I think that was a help. Going back, I was working for someone else, getting regularly paid every Friday, which is a massive thing. And then I took by chance, I went in for this interview. I was doing a mate of mine a favour. He said he had just started a recruitment, working in a recruitment agency, and he said, I want to put someone forward, someone that's able to talk, and it's my first placement. He said, will you go in and do it for me? It's a job that involves fumigating in hospitals. You'd be covering Connacht. He didn't even tell me the initial what it was, because I was only going in to do him a favour, to be someone to stand in.
Okay. And
I went in and done the interview, and about 3 hours later I got the call to say, you've got the job. And I was like, I didn't even want the fucking job. But when I heard what money was involved, I said, I'll give it a go.
Right.
Now, at this particular time as well, this is a couple of years after the brain aneurysm. I had started probably with the culture again, with the construction. As I said, I went back plastering a little bit.
Okay.
I started going back drinking again, and that was bringing me down a lane that I didn't want to go down again.
It's the incredible influence of your environment, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
yeah. When you were out of that environment, like working in Aldi, you weren't
drinking, and then we had many
back.
nights out as well. But there was a less tolerance, and there's a less tolerance in other industries than there is in the construction for alcohol. If you don't come in on a Monday smelling a drink, there's something wrong with you when you're in construction. But when you're done in Aldi, you only done it once.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. So you're sucked back into that.
Yeah,
lifestyle.
We're going down that road again. So I was like, if I keep continuing down this road, I'm going to end up sick again. And then I remember one bank holiday Monday, I made a promise. Backtracking a little bit here, I made a promise when I left Beaumont ICU, the Richmond unit. I made a promise that they looked after me so well, saved my life, that I was going to do a charity. I said I was going to run from Dublin to Mayo and raise money for Beaumont Hospital. And I remember waking up that bank holiday Monday and saying, that was 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2018. If I don't do this now, I'll never do it.
You woke up hungover?
I woke up hungover and just in bad form, and I actually emailed Beaumont Hospital and said, I'm going to run from Dublin to Mayo. And I knew that once I sent the email, that I made myself accountable to it.
You committed.
I committed to it. And funny enough, I for some reason, I'd done it on a bank holiday Monday, maybe half hoping that they wouldn't get the email, but also make myself feel better that I'd made an effort.
Yeah. You probably felt so guilty, didn't you?
Yeah, I felt guilty. Felt guilty that I was given this. Given this opportunity twice in life, and now I'm throwing it away again. But they emailed me back that bank holiday Monday, which I was like, I didn't even think you'd be working, and that was it. And that refocused my mind, kept the motivation going, made myself accountable to get fit. I knew something like that was going to take a lot of training, so I trained for like 7-8 months for this three marathons. I wanted to do it in 3 days, so that was 3 ultramarathons in 3 days.
Wow.
Again,
while still plastering and still sort of caught up in that environment. So how did you manage that then in terms of?
That was it, and I'd love to get back to that again. I was so motivated. Once I set my mind to something and make the commitment and start it, that is it.
Did you park the drink completely?
I parked the drink up completely. Absolutely. I'd say in the 7 or 8 months, I'd say 12 pints.
Okay.
In the entire. And the only reason for them was we'd started doing live shows, and I'd maybe 1 or 2 at a live show, and that was it.
Do you find you're slipping back down that road again?
Oh, 1,000%. I've made a rod for my own back when it comes to that. A lot of my content I've made through creamy pints.
Yes.
And I make a sketch of it, and I think people have forgotten that it's a character, and I think I've forgotten that it's a character.
The character becomes you.
Yeah, it's life imitating art.
Yeah.
So, like, even when I go to the live shows now and stay in hotels, there are either tins or cans of Guinness waiting for me on the bed with loads of other paraphernalia, or people actually have platters of proper pints of Guinness waiting for me when I get there. It is just, that's what is built up. Now, and saying that, I love pints.
Yeah.
And I've made money off doing ads for drink and whatnot like that. But it is not me. It is not what all I'm about.
Is that a matter of just managing your content a bit more going forward? Is it? Because maybe, what is it, 3-1, 4-1 in terms of your posts involves a pint?
I'd say it was probably 3 or 4-1. I'm trying to extend it out now. But the thing is, on Friday,
and then you linked up with the Guinness Guru just to make matters worse for yourself.
Guinness Guru. I'd done an ad for Conor McGregor's stout.
Yeah.
Which caused me a bit of controversy as well, but it's all part and parcel of it. I mean, that I came to expect that when you're in social media.
Okay.
You come to expect that.
So are you slipping down that road?
Oh, definitely. But I'm conscious of it. I'm very conscious of it, and I feel so guilty. So guilty. It takes me like 2 or 3 days to get over the guilt every weekend that I go for a live show. But I do
because
know
of the excessive drinking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it's something. If I went to a live show, and if I had someone to pull me away at like midnight, that's what I need.
Yeah.
You know?
Cinderella job. Yeah.
Because
head at the back door.
Because with the live show, it's nearly that's only half the show. People are waiting around now because they know there's going to be a massive after party and the crack's going to continue on. But it really tells the tale content wise, and your sharpness is gone. Especially if you're doing 3 or 4 nights in a row. It is so tough. We went to America. We done a few shows in America, and I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks and 2 days, or 2 weeks and a day. Didn't sleep. For all the sleep I got, it was just traveling, closing your eyes in a train, and that you cannot sustain.
That's a slippery slope.
Yeah, you cannot sustain. Like we went out for, we done a show. We were after doing a show in Monaghan the night before in the Garage Theatre, beautiful theatre. Went straight from the show to the airport. Went straight from the airport to another show in New York. Then we had 2 or 3 days off, so we could have recuperated. we could have relaxed.
You're on holidays. Yeah.
We could have chilled out. And the next day we went to a business meeting in a place that we were going to play our next show, which was like 2 or 3 days later. That was our second show, and then we were going to do a string of shows. So we had time. We had 2 or 3 days to recover. But did we? No. We landed to the place at about 4:00 for a dinner meeting and a business meeting, and that was at 4:00 on, we'll say, Tuesday or whatever, Monday. And we didn't get home until about 9 or 9:30 the next morning. But that's New York for you. It doesn't sleep, and that was it.
So you've almost created this environment now, as before you were in the environment where drinking was the norm, and being hungover and getting drunk Friday, Saturday, Sunday was just the thing. But now you've almost created the environment, and
I need to curtail that again back to it's a business first, whereas it's turned into the crack first and then a business after, where it has to be the other way around.
How are you going to manage that? Because you've built it up to such a extent now.
It just has to be. I brought in someone to run the promotion side of things and the management side of things, and we're going to try and work together to bring it back to being a business. And I don't want to be like, if you bring it to a business, then you say that you've lost the crack of it and the spontaneity of it. No, I mean, obviously that comes with it as well. But at the end of the day, everyone has to make money, and when you're on stage, you have to be sharp. There's only a few times you'll get away with going on a show after 2 or 3 nights on tour, been drinking the 2 or 3 days. It will eventually tell, and you might think that you're nailing it, but you're not. You're not. You might nail it once or twice, but eventually it catches up with you.
The cracks start to show.
Yeah, exactly.
Just filled those pint glasses up with Guinness Zeros now, and nobody needs to know.
I won't do that either. I'd rather not do it at all than that. I've been accused of drinking 0.0s in the videos the odd time, but no, I can assure you I've never drank.
You'll get a fair bit of backlash now when you come back in the pints, But we kind of fast tracked there a little bit in terms of Aldi, leaving Aldi, plastering, job with the HSE. So where did $3 left come into the frame?
$3 left came from in the middle of it all, I've always like had a lot of irons and a lot of fires.
Yeah. Because you've been on the Hardy Bucks before.
Yeah, I've been on the Hardy Bucks before, and it's great to get in. However long we've been on this podcast and not actually mention the Hardy Bucks yet, which is phenomenal, because usually when I'm doing a podcast, it's the first thing people mention. Straight in with the Hardy Bucks. I was a satellite character in the Hardy Bucks.
Yeah.
And I'm fully aware that I was a satellite character. A lot of people, when they try and bash me online, they'll say, "Oh, you were only like on the Hardy Bucks a little bit. Now that it's completely different."
Mm-hmm.
The reason we called it, well, we were trying to think of a name, and I'm so sorry that we let it be 3 bucks left,
because there's only 2.
There's only 2. Well, there's only 2 of us now. At the time, there was 3 of us, and we just happened to be from the Hardy Bucks. But it is something that I wish we didn't have. It wasn't named, but by the time we thought we'll change the name got so big that you couldn't.
Okay.
I remember even trying to change it on Facebook, and they said no. They wouldn't allow it. It's too different. It's too different from, if you're changing your name on Facebook, you kind of have to keep it within the same sort of realm.
Mm-hmm.
And the names.
What would you change it to if you had a choice?
We were thinking all sorts. We were thinking like there was some crazy names. Smoke and Mirrors was one of the names.
Yeah.
But it had already been taken. There was so many names that we came up with, but when we typed them in, someone had them already.
Was this all born from TikTok? And
no. TikTok was the last platform I went on.
Okay, so bring us back then to the birth. What
had happened was, obviously the Hardy Bucks had finished up in 2016, and I always kept in. I was very good friends with all the lads from it.
Yeah.
And they started doing live shows 2018. 2019. Now they'll tell you themselves, their first shows were car crash, absolute mayhem. They'd no plan. They're all legendary characters, so funny.
Yeah.
But they'd no plan, and they thought that dynamic that they had when they were filming would come to fruition on stage.
Very different on stage.
It doesn't work on stage. You know, the moments are spontaneous. You can't force the moments that they filmed, and a lot of that was spontaneous, and it was just the environment that they were in, and they were really chilled out around each other. Mm-hmm. But when you're on stage in a big room with 300 or 400 people looking up at you, and they're waiting for this brilliance, and you're left out there, and you're like, you could see it in them. I didn't go into them, mm-hmm. but I was watching them, and when you've no plan on stage, forget about it. No matter how funny you are, whether you're Tommy Tiernan, fucking Billy Connolly, you need some sort of a plan.
Yeah.
And then the stories come naturally from that, and the hilarity comes from that. But they went up, and they were just, you could tell that they were just trying to think of ideas on the spot, and it doesn't work like that. And again, drinking when you're on stage, doesn't work.
Start making mistakes.
It just goes mayhem. I remember they thought coming out with nothing on them, I mean, completely nothing on them, was going to be funny, and it completely backfired.
That's a big risk.
Big risk. Yeah, unless you're going to the full Monty, but even the full Monty, they don't walk on stage with nothing on them. But
okay, they're doing the live shows.
They're doing the live shows.
Where do you come in?
I went to a few of them to support them and whatnot, and then I kept going to them, and then Martin said it was going nowhere. In fact, they got a very bad review at some comedy festival.
Oh, okay. And
Martin said, F this, and he went completely back to the drawing board, and he came up with and it was kind of like an episode of the Hardy Bucks online or on stage.
Yeah.
And I went to see it the first time, and it was very good. It was brilliant, a lot different, and I just said I'd love to be involved in this. And that was in Belfast. The next show, though, was in Vicar Street. Vicar Street was the next show, and I said, I want to be involved in it. I said, even if it's for one show, I said, see how it goes. Went to Vicar Street, done the show, absolutely fell in love with the live stage. Once I walked out, that energy from 1,500 people watching you and cheering you on.
Where's your life at this stage in terms of what are you doing? Is this
what am I doing? Again, I am at this stage. I'm in construction. At that stage, I was in plastering. Not making anyways the money that I was, but still not panicking about.
Yeah,
I didn't have the 4 houses at this stage.
Okay.
I had all that sorted away.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that I was paying back was through plans that I'd done in that, so the stress wasn't there. So I was in a fairly good place. I was single at the time as well, so I was able to give time to these sort of things, and building myself up as well. Mentally. So
you go to the show
physically. I still remember probably getting over the 2016 aneurysm as well, but I was getting there as well, physically and mentally. And
so your mind is open now when you go to the show and you go, fuck, okay, there's something in this.
But I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I knew that it was only like a 5 or 6 part show tour that they were doing, because Owen Colligan, who played Buzz in the Hardy Bucks, was going off doing his own thing. Martin was going off doing his own thing. Now Martin would have kept it going if at all possible, but everyone was sort of doing their own thing. And I remember talking to Peter Cassidy, aka French Toast, and I said, I'd love to keep this going. And he said, why don't we start up our own page? So we did with Mikey Salmon. So that's why it became $3 left.
Yeah.
With Mikey Salmon. But eventually Mikey dropped off. He just wasn't it wasn't for him. So, but we were left with the name $3 left. But again, Mikey is always a good friend. So he never know, he might pop back up again in the future.
He's there in spirit.
He is indeed. Plus he got married as well, the poor bastard. So yeah, and then I decided to do the live shows, and I just kept at it, kept getting better and bigger, and kept honing in and changing the show a little bit, and then sort of defining my own style.
Okay.
And it's a lot different from the Hardy Bucks. It's proper stand up.
Did you take the audience from the Hardy Bucks with you, or
a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. I would say maybe 20% of the audience now know the Hardy Bucks.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit. I suss out for the live shows especially. I suss out does the Hardy Bucks, is there Hardy Bucks people in the house? Do they know the Hardy Bucks? And that'll sort of we can change the show up as we're going down the road, because in the beginning I'd say any Hardy Bucks fans in the house. I have a sort of a segue into that. And then you'll judge the rest of the show from that as well. So you know whether to keep it Hardy Bucks or not Hardy Bucks. And so we were surprised a couple of times when we went to a couple of shows that no one knew the Hardy Bucks. You know, from initially when we started off, a lot of people knew the Hardy Bucks. They were coming because it was a spin-off of the Hardy Bucks. Now it's
okay. Now it's separate from that,
completely separate.
What year did you start the live shows then?
2019.
That was 19.
That was 19. So you know where it's going next.
Yes.
Just getting into it, getting the shows, bigger crowds, the whole works. Really loving it. Really sharpening we had done the run in the middle of this as well, so the mind was sharp. And the mind was fresh, you know, and so we were kept fit. And so it was all working together. The being fit and staying off the drink with the live shows and working. It was busy, but it was a good busy. It was a fresh busy. There was no clouds in judgment. There was no clouds in the brain. And it was a great time. And then of course, just as we were taking off, COVID kicked in. And that was for the live shows. It was just gone for like 2 years. But in saying that, and all the giving out I done about COVID, it gave me loads of ammunition to build up the page and the pages and the platforms.
Yeah.
And I remember doing this rant one night I came to my head, and I couldn't wait to get up in the morning and do it. But when I woke up, I got into this fumigate. I didn't even finish that.
Yeah.
I got
a fumigating job.
Yeah. I got before COVID in the hospital. That was the job that I got that I didn't want. And the money was just incredible, and it set me up then for doing the live shows up till now. So
you started creating content.
Yeah, creating content. Then I remember I woke up to a call to say you have a bit of work in the Castlebar Hospital. Go in and do it. But I couldn't wait to get this video out on the platforms. So I done the video before I even went into the hospital. Put it up, uploaded it, went in. And was in there about 15-20 minutes, came back out. The page had just gone nuts. I remember in 15 minutes, and this was on one platform alone, had 110,000 views, and I was like, yeah, this works.
What was it? What was the video? What
That
was the
was a
content?
video where I was giving out about the inflation of COVID numbers and
All right.
the PTO and the lad getting his Mickey caught in a PTO shaft, and I just went in. But they still put him down as a COVID.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So, and that was the one that just took off from there, and that was every video I put up. Then after that, it just went nuts. So
that sets you up as a different type of persona, then, doesn't it? Like you start building a character around.
That was it. And remember that it is a character. Now, a lot of the times there's a message in every video I do. Sometimes it's just complete having the crack, but in general, it is just a.
People don't realize that, though.
Yeah.
People don't realize it.
No. And then I do put up real videos from time to time as well, and explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, or life events that have happened to me in general. Or I'll try and do a bit of encouraging young people to, like, I know one of them was to try and stop trying to road safety awareness, that sort of thing. So I'm not just a rant.
Well, these podcasts help as well, because as I said to you, we're getting to know Stephen Kelly.
Yes, exactly.
We know 3 Bucks Left pretty well, but we don't know Stephen Kelly that well.
3 Bucks Left is a character, and sometimes I have to remember that myself. I play up to it sometimes, especially when we're out, and you think you have to play up to this character, and then you think, hold on, well, the only one you're down here is yourself.
So obviously to rise to this fame, we call it fame. You have this again, this persona and this character that follows you around.
Notoriety, we'll say.
So you go to places and people recognize you.
Yeah.
It's that beard is quite distinctive anyway. So
it is. For one reason or another, it could be from the creamy pint videos. It could be from the government rants. It could be from the sketches in general. So
how do you deal with that then? Like, does it annoy you? Does it piss you off?
I love it. I love it to that extent. Now, there's times when you're absolutely shattered and your mind isn't a good place, especially if it's after a weekend, and you'd rather be at home in bed. But again, you can't stay in bed.
Yeah.
And you just try and keep your head down. But I don't mind it in general. I don't mind people coming up. There's been a few times when you'd be like, that's overstepping the mark. That's too overfamiliar. But they're rare. They're few and far between.
Yeah. But again, they know the 3 Bucks Left. They don't know the Stephen Kelly. Like This
exactly.
guy actually has a life outside of drinking pints and having the crack. Yeah.
But and like I said, that is something that I want to try and change the attitude for myself for drink, because like that, it's very easy to let it slip in drinking pints and going to the pub and having a big session before and after a session. It doesn't work for comedy. That you'll probably get away with it a lot more for if you're in the music industry, because it's you're playing the same tune, you're singing, you're playing the guitar and everything like that. But when you're on stage and you're trying to be funny and you're trying to be witty, you need to be so sharp. It is new every time.
Okay.
You can only tell a joke once, whereas you can play a song. You can play a song 1,000 times. So every time you deliver a joke, it has to be right. It has to be perfect, or a sketch or a funny story. You have to tell it. You have to be sharp. Simple as that.
There's such an expectation now, though, around your shows, isn't there?
Oh yeah, massive expectation.
How do you manage that?
And I put a lot of pressure on myself. There's been a few shows where I walked off stage thinking, "Oh my God, that was atrocious." But some of them have been some of the best feedback I've ever got from shows. Yeah. But you try and get so good that we probably got the show to a place that we just want to keep it that tight and that good all the time. And sometimes it just, no matter what you do, you're not going to pull a crowd around. The crowd is a part of the show as well. If the crowd is with you from the beginning, the show can be incredible. But if you're pulling teeth, if you're trying to work a crowd, if you're trying to massage a crowd all night, it's a disaster.
If they're too resistant.
Yeah. Sometimes crowds are afraid to laugh.
Okay.
It's like they're afraid
depending
to laugh.
on where you're playing, or depending on...
Or I've noticed if it's a 3 Bucks Left show, they're there to see, they know what to expect. But a lot of times we've headline shows, so they're coming maybe to support a different couple of comedians. So we'd be on Lashed, and the energy is sort of gone from the room.
You're trying to pick it up again.
Yeah, and you're trying to pick it up. You're trying to pick it up again. There might have been a brilliant comedian on beforehand, and they've drained the energy.
Okay.
There's only so much, no matter how good you are, comedy and humour. Trying to keep this as real as possible, that someone can listen to before they start to drain out energy-wise. And the there might have been 3 or 4 brilliant comedians on, or there could have been 3 or 4 absolute shit comedians on, and you have to try and the mood is low because of that.
Okay.
Now it happens very rarely, but it does happen.
Yeah.
But our show in general is a lot of energy. Pete is very physical humour. He gets the crowd involved. He gets them up. He gets them jived up. So yeah, it's a good show, and especially when it works the way it should do. But the drink definitely needs to come off that.
Yeah.
It needs to be managed a little bit more.
I'm thinking of your background there in terms of construction and the pressure and the stress that had an impact on your life.
Yeah.
I get the sense there's a lot of pressure and stress now around this new venture.
How
do you manage that?
1,000%. You just have to deal with it. I manage it through running and mentally decompartmentalizing everything and
separating yourself.
Yeah, separating myself from having all the aspects in life. The kids are going well, financially keeping the wolf from the door.
Yeah.
Then having the time to come up with new content, and that's a stress. And trying to come up with stuff for social media and keep it different from the live show, or trying to, there's 2 different things. And the character that I built up is a controversial. I touch on things that people wouldn't generally touch on. And I've made it, and I've made it so that I nearly feel obliged to speak up for the working man, especially in Ireland.
Because you've been there and you've suffered the consequences.
Yeah. And I've used my humour to highlight wrongs, I suppose, in the country. And as I said in a video during the week, that's probably why I'm so agitated when I see abuses of the system in Ireland. I love the country so much, and I've been there, and I'm an Irishman through and through, unapologetically Irish. So when I see things, I use my humour to try and highlight these wrongs.
But there's a fair bit of truth beneath the humour.
Yeah. But try and deliver a message as well. So, and I do believe that we'll say in the last referendum, the no vote, or the referendum about getting rid of the word mother, or whatever thing like that, and durable relationships and all that. I do believe that it was social media that swayed that result to such a big, and I think a victory for the people. I genuinely believe that the people are so sick of, and it was the fact that there was no alternative information from the likes of RTE or from the government. It was just vote this way and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think people are copping on that they can critically think for themselves, and I think that's a big thing to be able to critically think for yourself.
You're taking the power and the control back.
Exactly. And what they're trying to do, and might be a good thing, might be bad, but think outside the box and see where it goes.
Question everything.
Yeah, question everything. The government aren't fallible. No one's fallible.
Yeah.
So you have to make up your own decision, and I do think social media had a big part to play in a victory for the people in that last referendum. I really do.
Do you question yourself a lot?
Oh yeah. That's part and parcel of it as well. If I didn't, I'd never progress. If you think that you've made it, you're wasting your time.
You're done.
Yeah, you're done. And a line will never have to. My favorite line is, a line will never have to tell you he's a line. Just get on with it. If you've done something good, that's it. Park it there. Fair play to you. Keep going until the next time. Better it again the next time. And you can always there's always room for improvement. Always room for improvement. But also, when you do something good, don't be afraid to give yourself that pat in the back too.
Yeah. Fair play. Well, giving you a proverbial pat in the back here for this conversation, Stephen, and absolutely enjoyed talking to you.
Perfect.
And love the content.
Cheers.
The humour, but also the truth that's beneath the surface for you as well. And some of those poems are absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
Go check them out. And for all the listeners, where can they find you? Where can they reach out if they're not already on your page?
We are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter, or whatever it's called now, X or whatever like that. So, and get to a live show. That's where you'll see the real magic.
Definitely.
You'll hear me complain about everything, but in a hopefully humorous way.
Brilliant, yeah. Just get to one there myself, actually, yeah.
Yeah, do.
Fair play. Thank you, Stephen.
Cheers, Dan.
Till next time.
Thank you so much.